Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of cinema, and of course, or your Archduke of Banterbury, or your Archbishop, and of course, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. And once again, yes indeed, I am robcasting. I don't know why I do that. I'm robcasting towards you people. You members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, you imagination connoisseurs who are watching me now, welcome. This would be the 401st episode of Robservations, the show about something. You know, I have to tell you all, I love you all, I thank you all for yesterday. I to be honest, I was a little stressed. You know, I'm like, oh, I'll do interviews. And those interviews, I had to change frame rates, I had to edit them all, I had to add graphics, and it seemed like a good idea. But there's 8 hours of interviews, which means you triple that in terms of time spent, and everybody sent me videos, which, my God, the videos you people send me, amazing. Keep them coming. I know it's taken me a while to get to them. There's some people's videos I did not play yesterday. One I have to make, Mr. Gonzalez, you know who you are. It's really cool. I had a little technical issue with that, but I'll be playing that later this week, I think. Well, I guess our week it's midweek now. Maybe tomorrow. It depends. King Waspinator sent in a video. It's just too long to play. I might have to edit it down. Not that I don't love the video, King, because I do. And there's a few others. Here's the thing. If you send me videos and you put music in them, it has to be music that YouTube has allowed. YouTube has free music that you can put on your videos. If I don't know where the music comes from, I can't put the video up because I'll get a copyright strike, or they'll mute the music anyway. And if you have a time-lapse video, that would be kind of a bummer. So anyway, that's just a little bit of technical talk. But everybody that sent me stuff, amazing, so amazing. Some people actually wrote me and said, "Are you mad about Dieter's review of Free Enterprise?" I'm like, are you kidding? No way. Look, when you make something, you got to suffer the slings and arrows. It happens. I thought it was hilarious. I get where he was coming from. I disagree with him, but I get where he was coming from. You know, that's what's so great. But I loved his videos. They were hilarious. The Hunger Games thing, clearly he has something going on there for Jennifer Lawrence, which, you know, I can understand. But it was great. I loved getting everyone's videos. I loved seeing everyone. It was so much fun. Roberto Suarez's videos, I should just put him on the channel and give him his own link. For those of you who have asked me, so far I was able to get up the entire Carrie David interview and the entire Brian Fuller interview. I hope to get everybody's interviews up by the end of today, with the exception of Bill Sienkiewicz, because there's a frame rate issue, so I'm going to see if I can play with the sync and make the sync look a little better. We'll see what I can do about that. But other than that, it was a fine show. Even though I was very stressed, it went off. I couldn't believe it. Aside from the one camera freeze, I mean, my camera just stopped working. I think it went off without a hitch. I don't know if I'm going to do that again, to be honest. It was a lot of work. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, and it was really fun to have everybody's videos and to produce everything. But it was a lot of work. And if people saw that the Scream Factory did announce all the special features that are on the Hills Run Red, I was kind of doing them concurrently. I was finishing up the Hills Run Red Blu-ray special features as I was doing this stuff, and it was an enormous amount of work. I mean, it was a 7-day-a-week grind. Every day I had to make something, but I thought it was worth it. I really did enjoy it, so I hope you guys did too. It was pretty epic. I mean, for a small little YouTube channel and me just sitting here doing all this myself, it was a lot of fun. So I thank everybody for enjoying it. I mean, it was pretty interesting. Now, would any of you be surprised that I'm going to share an article about Star Trek Discovery right now? Would you? Because, you know, this passed me by, and I was like, I got to talk about this on the show. I got to say something. So, Trek Movie, you know, I think I'm putting on my glasses. Trek Movie had a little article a couple days ago that you thought I was going to pass by, didn't you? But no, I couldn't. I just couldn't. So here's an article that was on Trek Movie. Jonathan Frakes says Star Trek Discovery Season 3 will be a big tonal shift for the show. He goes on to say, or they go on to say, this is by TrekMovie.com staff, and it dropped on April 27th, so 2 days ago. The third season of Star Trek Discovery is supposed to be coming soon. While we can wait, director Jonathan Frakes continues to drop clues on what we can expect. The second season of Discovery ended with Michael Burnham and the USS Discovery separately jumping forward in time 930 years. Trek Movie recently reported on Jonathan Frakes discussing how Burnham and the Discovery crew will be reunited in the third episode of Season 3, which is one of the 3 he directed. Speaking to comicbook.com, Frakes offered more on where the new season is headed. Michael Burnham has found a new core, not to mention a new partner in crime. So again, there's a big tonal shift on the show, less driven by the pain and guilt of her past and more about the magical reunification of the Discovery crew and wherever she went off to. God knows where she went as the Red Angel. So those two things coming back together is very much the theme, and how grateful everyone is and what's next. It's got a lot of action adventure and not so much pain. And there's Michael Burnham, as you can see here with her dreads, I guess. I don't know. There you go. The new partner in crime Frakes is referring to is the new character named Book. They've literally put a character on Star Trek Discovery named Book. Come on, man. Really? Whatever you say, if you're going to have a character named Book, hey, why not? You know, next time I have a show that I create, maybe a science fiction show, I'm just going to name the characters Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, because no one will think about any other science fiction shows if I did that, right? But anyway, the new partner in crime Frakes is referring to is the new character named Book, played by David Ajala. Preview images and videos shows Sonequa Martin Green's Burnham along with Book, likely from the first couple of episodes of the season. The new season of Discovery takes the series beyond any other point in time in Star Trek canon, giving the creative team more freedom of movement when it comes to defining the far future. Frakes has previously talked about the creative challenge ahead, saying finding a future that's futuristic but is practical to shoot has been fascinating. You can't get caught up in the technology. It's about maintaining a basic core of why we're there, to tell emotionally compelling stories. Wow, let's hope so. Playing Riker in the Picard finale was like a flashback for Frakes. Jonathan Frakes' second appearance as Will Riker in Star Trek Picard saw him as the acting captain of the USS Zhang He, leading a task force to save the day in the season finale. Frakes gave Comic Book some details. That was a really different experience because I was alone. I was self-directing. I was in a captain's chair. I had a spacesuit on. I had my beard trimmed, my Riker hair put back on, my bald spots covered up. It felt very familiar, and it was like a flashback because of how well Nepenthe went. I was less nervous, and I got to say thrilled to have been asked back, to be perfectly frank. Even though Star Trek Picard is shot in Southern California, Frakes' scenes on the USS Zhang He were shot in Toronto on a redress of the USS Discovery Bridge set. These scenes were shot while Frakes was directing an episode for the third season of Discovery. The Season 1 finale of Star Trek Picard, released a month ago, featured a promo for Star Trek Discovery Season 3, promising it will be coming soon. Production on it wrapped in February, and post-production is being done remotely, although earlier this month, composer Jeff Russo told Trek Movie that recording the music with an orchestra will not be possible during the lockdown in California. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to remind everybody that Jonathan Frakes, that was added. That was an addition of him showing up at the end. It was Ann Magnuson's, our favorite, totally fucking hubris admiral, was actually in that scene originally, and they reshot Frakes in the role, which is sort of interesting. You know, I will say I will go into Discovery Season 3 with an open mind. I will. And I don't know how, I guess, do we have the Discovery, do they just abandon it? Because as we know from a short trek, everybody left the Discovery and left it there for a while. So who knows what happens? Are they going to add that into continuity? I don't have a lot of hope for the show, but hey, it's an interesting direction they've taken Star Trek Discovery in, and it was a direction that, of course, Jeff Thorne, myself, Brian Singer, and Chris McQuarrie talked about with our own pitch for a Star Trek series before Bad Robot called Star Trek Federation that we never actually pitched. It was just an idea we all had that we were putting together. and it was about the same kind of thing. So we will see what happens. Now, there was a really interesting article that dropped that like 6 people sent to me. And it's really interesting. I've had it sent to me via email and on direct message on Twitter. And when that happens, I'm like, huh. But I love that when that happens, because when people send me articles, they're usually pretty interesting. And this article was really interesting. And it dropped on the BBC 4 hours ago. And let's jump over to that right now. How about that? Ooh. This article says, it's from the BBC from 4 hours ago. I don't see the name of someone who wrote this. But the U.S. has ruled that artificial intelligence cannot be recognized as an inventor, U.S. rules say. An artificial intelligence system has been refused the right to 2 patents in the U.S. after a ruling only natural persons could be inventors. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office rejected 2 patents where the AI system Dabus was listed as the inventor in a ruling on Monday. U.S. patent law had previously only specified eligible inventors had to be individuals. It follows a similar ruling from the UK Intellectual Property Office. Dabus designed 2 things: interlocking food containers that are easy for robots to grasp, and a warning light that flashes in a hard-to-ignore rhythm. And its creator, physicist and AI researcher Stephen Thaler, has argued that because he had not helped it with the inventions, it would be inaccurate to list himself as the inventor. But patents offices insist innovations are attributed to humans to avoid legal complications that would arise if corporate inventorship were recognized. Some academics, however, have previously suggested this should no longer apply. The European Patent Office has seen a surge in AI-driven filings, according to Powell Gilbert, LLP, intellectual property law specialist Penny Gilbert. AI is a fast-evolving field set to revolutionize many industries and raises many untested issues around patentability and ownership of inventions that are made using it, she told BBC News. The rulings have made clear that an AI cannot be named as an inventor, but may yet be appealed. The World Intellectual Property Organization, I didn't even know there was one, the World Intellectual Property Organization has started a consultation on this issue and is due to continue the discussion at a session in mid-May, with the outcome expected to influence future IP policy. Now, this is one of those things where I'm like, I didn't know this. Like, it came out of left field for me. But according to this article, an AI, this Dabus system, did in fact create 2 things that never existed: interlocking food containers that are easy for robots to grasp, and a warning light that flashes in a hard-to-ignore rhythm. 2 things that didn't exist. Now, the thing that I look at this, and it is, again, I find the real world frustrates me because we are so not forward-thinking. The fact is, this AI did, in fact, invent these things that didn't exist. Now, does that mean that a human being can just come along and say that they made it even though they didn't? Or they're talking about, there's a mention here of corporate ownership. They don't want corporations to own IP, that IP needs to be owned by individuals, which I could see that. But then wouldn't then the inventor of the AI, the person who invented the AI, wouldn't they get the credit for the patent? Because if the AI that person invented then went on to design things, I would think, I mean, a parent is responsible for his children under the eyes of the law for a certain amount of time. It seems strange to me that this is an issue that hasn't yet been addressed. And I find myself frustrated a lot. Anyone who's seen the George Bush video, George H.W. Bush, oh wait, it's George W. Bush? George H.W. Bush? The second George Bush, from 2005, talking about global pandemic response and how the United States should be prepared. What I don't understand is we already know things that are going to happen. Global pandemic, I mean, it happened. SARS, MERS, we had a movie. Contagion. You can go back and say outbreak, but Contagion was basically based on what really happened. So why is it that we in America are not, we should be all over this stuff? We should be the most forward-thinking, and when it comes to this kind of thing, the moral and ethics, the morality and the ethics behind emergent technologies and bioethics and all of these things, I would think that we would be way out in front of all this, because here's a situation where an AI created something. And yet, our response to that is to say, well, you know, sorry, only human beings can create things. Well, in this case, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. An AI created two things that didn't exist, and the patent office said no. Now, there's a link here that says some academics, however, have previously suggested this should no longer apply. I'm going to hit that link, and I'm going to read this article. Ooh. This article was written by Leo Kellyan, and it was written on August 1st, 2019, and it was also in the BBC. Let's check this out, shall we? An artificial intelligence system should be recognized as the inventor of two ideas in patents filed on its behalf, a team of academics says. The AI has designed, it's the same thing. The AI has designed interlocking food containers that are easy for robots to grasp and a warning light that flashes in a rhythm that's hard to ignore. So this was back in 2019, and now in 2020, we're still trying to figure this out. The Patent Office insists innovations are attributed to humans to avoid legal complications that would arise if corporate inventorship was recognized. Academics say this is outdated, and it could see patent offices refusing to assign any intellectual property rights for AI-generated creations. Well, that's odd. That doesn't make sense to me. As a result, two professors from the University of Surrey have teamed up with the Missouri-based inventor of Dabus AI to file patents in the system's name with the relevant authorities in the UK, Europe, and the US. Well, this is great. It's all the same thing. Dabus was previously best known for creating surreal art, thanks to the way noise is mixed into its neural networks to help generate unusual ideas. Unlike some machine learning systems, Dabus has not been trained to solve particular problems. Instead, it seeks to devise and develop new ideas, what is traditionally considered the mental part of the inventive act, according to creator Stephen Thaler. The first patent describes a food container that uses fractal designs to create pits and bulges in its sides. One benefit is that several containers can be fitted together more tightly to help them be transported safely. Another is that it should be easier for robotic arms to pick up and grip them. The second describes a lamp designed to flicker in a rhythm mimicking patterns of neural activity that accompany the formation of ideas, making it more difficult to ignore. Law professor Ryan Abbott told the BBC News, "These days you commonly have AIs writing books and taking pictures, but if you don't have a traditional author, you cannot get copyright protection in the US. So with patents, a patent office might say, if you don't have someone who traditionally meets human inventorship criteria, there is nothing you can get a patent on. In which case, if AI is going to be how we're inventing things in the future, the whole intellectual property system will fail to work." Instead, he suggested, an AI should be recognized as being the inventor, and whoever the AI belonged to should be the patent's owner unless they sold it on. However, Professor Abbott acknowledged lawmakers might need to get involved to settle the matter, and that it could take until the mid-2020s to resolve the issue. A spokeswoman for the European Patent Office indicated that it would be a complex matter. It is a global consensus that an inventor can only be a person who makes a contribution to the invention's conception in the form of devising an idea or a plan in the mind, she explained. The current state of technological development suggests that, for the foreseeable future, AI is a tool used by a human inventor. Any change would have implications reaching far beyond patent law, i.e. to authors' rights under copyright laws, civil liability, and data protection. The EPO is, of course, aware of discussions in interested circles and the wider public about whether AI could qualify as inventor. The UK Patents Act from 1977 currently requires an inventor to be a person, but the Intellectual Property Office is aware of the issue. The government believes that AI technology could increase the UK's GDP by 10% in the next decade, and the IPO is focused on responding to the challenges that come with this growth, said a spokeswoman. Well, I mean, to me, the question is now, well, AI did invent this. You can't say that AI didn't. So now you have to deal with the problem. This is what I find frustrating. I mean, anybody that has read any modern science fiction, there's 1,000 ideas in a modern science fiction book. I talk about Peter Watt's Blind Sight. You read that book, you're like, clearly these things are going to happen. Why don't we have think tanks and groups that are solving these problems right now? Why didn't we have... You know, it's strange to me. I don't understand why we watch our current administration, not to be political, but they have rescinded environmental protections from earlier administrations. Why would you do that? Why would you? I understand let's in the short term, let's be able to drill oil on public land. Not a good thing in a closed biosphere. Whatever we can do to clean up this biosphere will be helpful. You know, it's just like, we need the Amazon rainforests. So does it make sense to economically, maybe now in the short term, to plow the Amazon rainforest over to create land for cattle? But is that really helpful in the long run? I mean, it seems to me like we're trading one thing for another. And I don't understand why this idea that if AI is creating something and we don't yet have, I don't know, proper legalese in place to figure out what we're going to do about it, well, why do we not have this? I can't stand that we live in this world where these questions are, wow, we might not have it till the mid-2020s. Well, by the mid-2020s, you might have 10,000 things that AI created. I mean, AI is indeed a tool. You know, that's why we made AI, to help us do these things. And yet we don't understand the moral or ethical or legal implications of the very things that we create. And that's what I find maddening about our technology and our advancement and our place in the world. You know, just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do a thing. And all of what Jeff Goldblum, what Ian Malcolm would say with his chaos theories and mathematics and all that. We need to get behind this stuff. We need to get out in front of it, and we need to figure this stuff out. Why are we waiting until 2020, mid-2020? Another half decade to figure out who owns the patent on something an AI created? I mean, I understand they don't want corporations to own AI, so then the chief programmer of the AI gets to create it, I guess. Why is that such a difficult thing to figure out? I don't understand. If there's no one else, if something is not going to have a copyright until what? Anybody can go create it? That AI created it. Somebody in that camp needs to be recognized and be able to carry or keep that AI patent. That's the way I see it. Why wouldn't you? You can't pretend the AI didn't create something, and yet in our modern age, we are going to have these things again and again to deal with, and we don't. It's nutty. I don't understand. Yeah, I just don't understand. It's frustrating, people. It is frustrating to me. I want to point out that for the 400th anniversary, for the 400th show of Robservations, we are giving away until my birthday, until May 15th, we are giving away a JBL Bar 9.1. And how cool is that? It is a true surround sound Dolby Atmos soundbar created by JBL. And it is quite spectacular. There are people that we already have, I believe, over 2,000 entries. All you have to do is click through it. You put your email in, you click through it, and you go to anywhere on the Burnettwork or Whining About Movies, the website, the Facebook pages. Here is the link. I'm putting it in there. And what's really cool is this widget that you're going through is it collects your email, and it will randomly pick By the way, it's not used for anything else. And then the widget goes away, so we're not data mining or anything like that. But it will be fair. So if you enter, every time you go through, you can enter as many times as you want. You can click through this widget, just go to different places, and it'll calculate how many times you've gone where. And it'll just enter, you get entered into it over and over and over again, as much as you want, however much you want. And the experiential engagement department of Harman International, led by Connie, who I've become greatly fond of. Connie was able to organize this, and so shouts out to Samsung, shouts out to Harman, and shouts out to JBL for making this thing. I, of course, was able to sample one before I was, it's funny, they sent it to me, and I've done a review, but I'm not dropping it because this thing isn't out until the 31st of May. And I just said to Connie, who organized me getting the thing, I said, what if we gave away one of these and promoted it on the 400th episode of Robservations? And she was like, that's a really good idea. So kudos to the entire experiential engagement department at JBL, at Harman International, and at Samsung for having Harman and being able to do this. I think it's really, really cool. And it's a great giveaway for the Post-Geek Singularity. For all of you imagination connoisseurs, I mean, it's $1,000 piece of gear. And it's really neat. I really enjoy it. I was enjoying it last night, as a matter of fact, as I watched Brazil. You, of course, will be getting a brand new one that will be shipped by them. And I need to find out from Connie whether it can be shipped internationally. I would assume not, only because of power issues, but I will find out and get an actual answer. But I did put the link in the live chat. You can click on there and go through and enter as many times as you want. I have to say, it comes with a subwoofer, and it's a pretty kickin' system, and I've quite enjoyed it, I have to say. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. I got letters, people. I haven't read letters. Let's start out and seeing what you guys had to say. Oh, I've got a great, you know what? There is a great letter here. I have to see if this is a great letter. Well, this first letter comes from Charles Howes, who says, why don't they put up screens outside theaters and turn them into drive-ins? Use the parking lot. They already serve popcorn and drinks, and get on with showing the hits. Well, I mean, that's easier said than done. You'd have to get decent projection, and if you don't already have the sound, I mean, I know it can be broadcast over the radio. It's just not something anybody would do, and you could only do it at night. I think it's a problematic idea. It's not a bad idea, but I think it's problematic. So I don't know. But, drive-ins, if you want to go to a drive-in, I think that's great because they're already set up for that. Okay, this letter is, I can't tell you how much I like this letter. This letter comes from Sean M. And when I was talking about perfect movies and how I talked about, I should set this up and say, I've always considered Raiders of the Lost Ark to be a pretty perfect movie. And people have always thrown at me this one mistake they see in the film, that Indiana Jones, when he swims from the Bantu wind over to the German U-boat, that he shouldn't have been able. What if the U-boat dove? What if it went underwater? How would he be able to do that? But apparently it didn't, and he was able to get to the island where the Ark of the Covenant is opened at the end of Raiders. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this letter comes to us from Sean M. This is a great letter. This is exactly the kind of, you know what, this is why I love this community, and you'll see why. Hi, Rob. I wanted to comment on the discussion you had regarding Raiders of the Lost Ark and verisimilitude from April 25th. Let me preface these comments by saying that I love this film. It's highly entertaining. Within the world Raiders of the Lost Ark has created, it has peak verisimilitude. When I'm watching this film, I believe it without reservation. However, I do find it amusing to look at some of the real-world details shown on screen, as they don't at all make sense unless the film exists in another universe similar, but certainly parallel, to ours. Indiana Jones is shown boarding a Type 7C U-boat, which is subsequently shown to submerge in an interior scene. Jones is presumably outside. This would be near certain death for Jones unless the boat stayed at periscope depth, as he would have been sucked under by the boat to the typical dive depth of 100 meters. If the U-boat remained at periscope depth at the submerged speed of 7.6 kilometers, I think, knots, I would imagine, there is no way Jones could have held on to the periscope for any length of time. 2. What if the U-boat remained on the surface? It didn't, as shown in the next scene where the captain orders the boat to dive. Interestingly, the captain is referred to as an oberst, which is an army rank equivalent to the US-UK colonel. The correct rank for a U-boat commander is, of course, Captain Lieutenant, although typically I believe he would have been referred to as a Capitan. Only, as in most navies I'm familiar with, regardless of rank, the captain of the ship is referred to as captain no matter his actual rank. I believe this is the case in Kriegsmarine as well. Someone more familiar with the German language and the traditions of the Kriegsmarine could perhaps clear this up. Dieter Bastian, where are you? What are you doing in Deutschland? Clear this up for us, please. 3. What if the U-boat was executing a drill and dived briefly but surfaced? The scene after shows the captain looking at the secret base through the periscope, implying the boat traveled submerged to the base. What if the Dr. Jones managed to hang onto the periscope all the way to the secret base? Yeah, no. See previous comment. But really, what if the U-boat dived briefly, then surfaced for most of the trip, then dived again? Okay, Jones might have found his way back onto the U-boat, although it's pretty unlikely as it would have traveled some sort of distance. No human can swim at 7.6 knots for an hour. But really, what if the U-boat stayed on the surface? This would actually make the most sense, as diesel-electric boats like the Type 7C are range-limited by their batteries, which must be charged by their diesel engines, which need air to run. In non-wartime conditions, a U-boat would only dive as an exercise. Running underwater depletes the batteries and is far slower at 7.6 knots versus 17.9 knots at flank speed, 10 knots standard speed on the surface. In this case, standard practice would be to have a constant lookout with the boat on the surface. Jones would have been captured. The absence of these lookouts on the U-boat in the scene where Jones boarded meant that the boat intended to dive, which would mean Jones would die or be cast away, as discussed earlier. Why is the U-boat a Type 7? Great question, glad you asked. The conning tower and shape of the boat shown in the scene indicates it's a Type 7C, the same as those shown in Das Boot. The reason for this is that the Raiders of the Lost Ark used the meticulously created models for Das Boot, as both were filming concurrently. It is worth a mention that the Type 7C was built from 1940 onwards, so it couldn't have been present in 1936. However, the Type 7A boats, which were fairly similar and were built in small numbers, 10, between 1935 and 1937, were sort of available in 1936. Germany, as you may remember, was banned from building U-boats by the Treaty of Versailles. They restarted construction after the Anglo-German Naval Agreement of 1935, which is a long story unto itself that I will not discuss here. This means that at most there were 10 Type 7A boats in 1936 when Raiders of the Lost Ark takes place, all of which would have been building or on sea trials in the North Sea near the shipyards in Kiel or Bremen. None would have been on active duty, and certainly not in the Mediterranean. Interestingly, the pennant number painted on the sail of the boat is 26, which indicates she was a U-26, a Type IA boat. Quite likely, some researcher who worked on the film noted that this boat was in service at the time and used this number. However, these boats look quite different from the Type 7 and were never on duty in the Med. 8. Beyond the U-boat scene, the German army is shown running an archaeological dig in Egypt in 1936. How is this possible? In a word, no. In 1936, Egypt was nominally an independent state. However, in practice, Egypt was subject to the Brits. The British maintained a garrison in Suez, a naval base at Alexandria, and controlled all external affairs. King Farouk was afraid of the Italians who were at his border and who had just invaded Ethiopia. He didn't like the British, to be sure, but he liked the Italians less, as they had just invaded Abyssinia and would never have allowed their ally Germany to establish a presence in Egypt, as shown in the film. The British Suez garrison, which was presumably on the lookout, would even less have been inclined to allow a German army-run dig in Egypt in 1936. It's just not possible in our reality. 9. The German flying wing in 1936, was this real? No, categorically not. But the Germans understood aerodynamics better than most, and as such, they knew a flying wing is the most aerodynamic shape, producing the most lift per unit area, as did many others, such as the U.S. Naval Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. NACA was incidentally the predecessor to NASA. However, the Germans lost all their interest in it and did not produce a flying wing aircraft. It's fictional. As an aside, the reason there are inherent practical problems with the flying wing that took a lot of time to work out, or are indeed insoluble. There are control problems inherent in not having a tail. A wing has more lift, but this is because it has more surface area. The faster you go, the more this adds drag, which limits speed and fuel efficiency at higher speed. There's a lack of space for cargo in a flying wing. 11. German-run submarine base in the Aegean or the Mediterranean in a cave in 1936. Was this real? Categorically not. Italy had a base on Rhodes, which a U-boat could have gone to, but it wouldn't have been a cave as shown in the film, nor less would Germans have been running it. As discussed earlier, in 1936, Germans had barely got a U-boat program running again. They wouldn't have had a base dug into a rock in the Mediterranean where they didn't have a presence at all. So, this is a long letter. As George Lucas said, Raiders of the Lost Ark was based on serials from the 1930s. As such, it's not peak verisimilitude with respect to real history, but it is peak verisimilitude with respect to itself. I can respect that, and I love the film. I would rather, though, that people know real history is different from this film, and I have attempted to demonstrate that here. Sean M. Well, Sean, I'd say you did, and I would say that you knocked this one out of the park, man. What a great letter that was. And, man, I'm proud of this community. I love that people write me stuff like this. I mean, did you find that as enjoyable as I did? Because I certainly did. I love that. I just love when people send in stuff like that. It gets me ghibli. I do get ghibli. Let's see. You know what? You guys are sending in questions and chats, and let's go to them. Mark Evans sends in a tip and says, "Hey, Rob, did you watch Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson? If so, what did you think about it? I was left a bit disturbed after watching it." Well, Mark, I think you kind of are. For those of you who don't know what Mark Evans is talking about, there's a book, which I have. Where is it? It's right there, as a matter of fact. I could jump up and get it, but then I would have to take my headphones off. By Mark Faber, the man who wrote Crimson Petal and The White. And it's a great book, and Under the Skin is based on that. And I don't want to ruin what it's about, but Under the Skin is about a girl with a very odd point of view, let's just say, without ruining anything, who is exploring her surroundings, trying to figure out what's up. I'm going to leave it at that. I loved the movie, and I understand Scarlett Johansson goes full frontal. I get all that. I know. But that's not why I love the film. I think the film, let's just say the film, all right, I'll just spill it. The film, she's an alien, and she's observing the Earth. But the film is amazing, and it's incredibly cinematic, and I love it. And I own it on Blu-ray. So I really like the movie, Mark, and it is disturbing. I think it's supposed to be disturbing. And, I think if you are looking for a standard narrative, you might find it a little hard to take. I think maybe, or maybe not. I really love the movie. I would say, there you go. It's a great movie. I really liked it. Willow sends in a tip and says, "Who is the biggest head here, and who is least in the movie? If you say Jessica Alba is in this movie, I hope you give me Jessica Alba in this movie in not only 5 minutes." Dieter from Deutschland. He was criticizing me because William Shatner was not in the movie as long as he thought he should be. He was in the movie much longer than 5 minutes, just so you know. But you know what? You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And William Shatner's an ace negotiator. And we did build the movie around him. So I think Dieter is wrong about that, but I understand where he's coming from. He's wrong, but from a certain point of view, maybe he could be considered right too. I don't. Who am I to judge? Willow also goes on and says, "What's the worst example of false advertising for a movie that you can think of?" Oh, I'm sure there's a lot. God, the worst example of false advertising. You know what? I'm kind of drawing a blank, but I'm sure. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find one just to see what somebody says. I just Googled worst example of false advertising in a movie. This is just... false advertisement in a movie. Oh, here's a couple of good ones. Okay. What is the worst example of false advertisement by a movie trailer? For me personally, it's The Nutty Professor. In the trailer, they make it seem like he's done an experiment to turn himself into the size of Godzilla, but in the movie, it's just a dream sequence that lasts about 20 seconds. It still annoys me today. Ooh, I like that. A couple of examples for me were Silver Linings Playbook. The trailer made it seem like a comedy and kind of light when it was not at all. And The Village. That's a good one. Phil Coulson in Captain Marvel's trailer. He was barely even in the movie. Not enough. I went only to see him. Well, that's pretty interesting. I like that. Those are some good ones. I'm drawing a blank. I mean, I can't think of... I can't really think of... wait. There's another... Movies with misleading trailers. Crimson Peak. A haunted house horror movie set in a decrepit mansion with a mind of its own. What it really was, Crimson Peak actually tells you right off the bat what it is. It's not a ghost story, insists its leading lady of her own manuscript. It's a story that has ghosts in it. Ghosts are just metaphor for the past. Drive, what the movie promised, a high-octane crime thriller that could be a Fast and Furious ripoff. What it was, a moody, meditative neon noir that weaves together a dreamy electropop soundtrack, an impossibly cool leading man, and a slow-burn romance with the girl next door, punctuated by blood-red bursts of stylish violence. It's intoxicating in its own way, but feels far more like a modern art house fairy tale than a Fast and Furious ripoff. That's a good one. In Bruges, the trailer promised a slick, stylish gangster comedy a la Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and what it was? A black comedy suffused with existential angst, basically waiting for Godot with more shootouts. As with Drive, the film we actually got is better, sharper, and more original, but the trailers suggested that it was like Drive. Interesting, that was a good one. I like these are pretty good. Marvel's Iron Man 3, what the trailer promised, a dark superhero drama with a chilling, ruthless villain known as the Mandarin. We all know where that wound up. Cabin in the Woods, a thriller as generic as its title, following 5 attractive young people who make a series of fatally stupid decisions. I'm not going to tell you what the decisions are or what happens in that movie if you haven't seen it, because it's amazing. Spring Breakers, a raucous party film about 4 pretty college girls on spring break. No, not exactly, but I don't want to tell you if you haven't seen Spring Breakers. Hancock, here's a good one. A grown-up comedy about screwed-up superheroes. What it was, the first half of Hancock is exactly the movie you'd expect from the trailers, a savvy parody of superhero movies that were blowing up in popularity around the time. Hancock was released in the same summer as Iron Man and the Dark Knight. Then it takes a sharp left to become a drama about the epic romance between 2 immortals who have been drawn together and pulled apart for a millennia. That's interesting. I like that. There's a bunch more. What a good question. 'Cause I didn't have an answer for you, Willow, but I got you one anyway, so there you go. Calvin Edwards sends in a tip. Thank you, Calvin, very much. Many thanks for your content. Your interviews with Brian Fuller and Bill Sienkiewicz are beyond awesome. Well, Calvin, thank you for that. They were really fun to do, and I was surprised at how, I had known both Brian, I know Brian Fuller and I know Bill Sienkiewicz, so they were open to doing it. Those were actually the first 2 interviews that I think I did, and it turned out great, and I'm glad you really enjoyed them. For those of you who are interested, like I said, the Kerry David interview and the Brian Fuller interview are up on the Burnettwork YouTube page in their entirety, so you can hear all 90 minutes of the Brian Fuller interview, and I think the Kerry David interview is like 75 minutes long, and I'm going to get the other interviews up shortly. I'm glad you liked them. They were a lot of fun to do. I wanted, someone asked where I was going to take the channel, where I wanted to take the channel. Did I want to do this? I really want to maybe do a combination of both. While I like doing the daily show, I think it's a lot of fun. I've always wanted it to be more. It started out, if you go back and you watch the one episode of Robservations I did, where I go to our moderator's house, Greg Smith, my old friend, and I show him and his costumes and his land speeder. That's what I thought Robservations was going to be. I thought I was going to travel around and interview people. It was an enormous amount of work, and I didn't have any subscribers really to speak of then, and it was just, I don't know, was it worth the time? It was an enormous amount of work, but I always wanted to do long form interviews and documentary pieces, and it's just hard. Like, it was hard putting that show together yesterday because I've been doing so much work. I mean, literally, I think I created, there's 6.5 hours, if you include the audio, there's 2 audio commentaries that are each 81 minutes, so that almost knocked out. So there's 3.5 hours of video. I think I did 2.5 hours of the video, and creating 2.5 hours of video from footage, making 2.5 hours of documentary stuff is an enormous, enormous amount of work. But we did it in 5 weeks. I mean, Dave Parker did his featurettes and everything in 5 weeks, and I did mine in 5 weeks. But I'd already started working on the 400th show, and it's an enormous, enormous amount of work. So I'm glad you really like the interviews. That makes me really happy because, I had to reach out to those people and I had to organize organize with them and work around their schedules and things, and it was really, really great. So I appreciate, Calvin, that you appreciated them because they were a lot of fun to do. I would like to do more of that for the channel, to be honest, if I can. And hopefully it was interesting because over the weekend I interviewed Lloyd Kaufman. I interviewed David Goodman, the executive producer and writer of The Orville for the Mainframe Comic Con. It was great to see those interviews drop. And everybody I interviewed at the Mainframe Comic Con contacted me again and said how much fun they had doing it. So that was terrific. It was good. Stubble McShave sends in a tip. Hello, Stubble. If movies in autumn gets pushed to 2021, they should move Oscars to next year and have movies from both 2020 and 2021. It's 90 years since the first Oscars, and I think a show celebrating the history of film could be done in February. Maybe vote best film for each decade. That's interesting, doing an Oscar retrospective show. I think that's a really good idea. I don't know. Royce Freeman asks about, what did you think about the films No Small Affair and Hiding Out? Man, I saw No Small Affair. Is No Small Affair the one with Jennifer Connelly? I can't remember. I saw those each one of those movies once, so I don't remember them enough to comment on them. Kenneth Taylor sends in a super chat and says, Star Trek Discovery has always been outside canon. Well, Kenneth, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay, let me tell you. Abdul Alains sends in a super chat and says, hey, Rob, did you see Squadron Supreme? Do you see Squadron Supreme ever being in the MCU? Could be a nice juxtaposition to the Avengers if done right. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, the Squadron Supreme is a great way to introduce a pantheon of characters that are pretty cool. For those of you who don't know, Squadron Supreme it's definitely a riff. It's a Marvel riff on the Justice League. I would love to see that happen. That way you could bring in Sentry in there. It could be interesting. Kenneth also sends in a super chat and says, to those who argue that the timeless child, Doctor Who, violates canon, I point to the brain of Morbius from the Tom Baker era. Well, I'm not up on I know what happened in the timeless child. It was retconning and the brain of Morbius. Yeah, but here's the thing. The timeless child took a lot of liberties, and I understand what you're saying. I don't exactly know the brain of Morbius, but I watched the timeless child, and I get it. I know what you're saying, but did they really need to do that? I don't know. I don't know. Where are they going with it? I don't know. Why do they have to do that kind of big retcon? I always feel like when somebody goes, Michael Burnham, Spock's sister, why do they have to go back and retcon these things that we already know? Because what you do is, I don't believe that Michael Burnham ever knew Spock growing up. That just isn't true. I watch it, I'm like, give me a break. That's just something somebody makes up, a fundamental character change like that, and it denigrates Spock. I just don't. I don't like it. I don't like when they do that. Stub McShave sends in a tip and says, what starts up first, theaters showing movies or movie TV production of halted or new projects? Probably movie and TV production. I mean, here's the problem. Here's the problem as I see it. With the virus still out there, we haven't beaten it back and nobody can get inoculated. You could have everybody on a set that's been sequestered away for, like, we've been sheltering at home for 6 weeks now or something. So 6 weeks. Now, if you haven't had any symptoms, you haven't been sick in 6 weeks, and you come to work, well, working on a movie set, there's caterers that come in and they have to bring food. Where were they? As we see now, there's coronavirus patients making Tyson plants making meat and poultry for us. Not making it, but what would you call it? Harvesting that. And those people, you just never know. So I mean, movie theaters are already opening in some places, but I don't think it's going to end well. But at least with a movie set or a crew, you could know whether anyone was sick. And if you hadn't been sick in 6 weeks and came in and you were diligent about where the food was coming from, I think maybe it could work out. Maybe. Sujit sends in a super chat and says, I've been watching the new season of Cosmos on Disney Plus. I keep forgetting to watch it, so thank you for reminding me. The show is about humanity's future of space exploration. This is a much watched for imagination connoisseurs. I loved the original Cosmos. I like the reboot of Cosmos. I'd love to watch this new season. I keep forgetting to do it, so I think I will. Thank you for reminding me again. Royce Freeman sends in a super chat and says, I watched Dead Ringers. Ooh, and wondered, were they posing as each other and dating each other's girlfriends, deceitful or a sex crime? That is a very good question. I think it's both. And yeah, it just added to the whole creepiness, the fact that they could get away with that they were sharing women. Yeesh. I mean, normally when you're going to do that, all parties involved know it's up, threesome or a cuckold situation or something like that. Everybody's very upfront, and you're going to get in those situations. It's make sure you're upfront. Make sure everyone's comfortable. What they did, what the Mantle boys did was not good. Beverly and Elliot Mantle, not a good look, boys. Not a good look, especially in this day and age. Dark Helmet sends in a super chat and says, Steve Martin movies are like my comfort food. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Roxanne, and My Blue Heaven, Three Amigos, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Bowfinger are my favorites. Thanks for being such a great guy. Well, thank you, Dark Helmet. Or are you saying that Steve Martin is a great guy? Maybe it's me, maybe it's Steve. Either way, I think Steve Martin's a great guy. I like his movies too. I really like his movies too. Eyes on the Wire sends in a super chat and says, Grand Canyon, he's in Grand Canyon as well, I believe. I liked him in Grand Canyon, too. Eyes on the Wire sends in a super chat and says, suggestion for Elizabeth's Last Year at Marienbad. I think she would really like. I own Last Year at Marienbad on Blu-ray. It's an interesting movie. I saw Last Year at Marienbad in a theater about 5 years ago. It was amazing. I really like the movie a lot. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a tough watch. You kind of got to let it wash over you. It's narratively very it's very dreamlike, and you don't quite know what's real and what's not real. And what gorgeous black and white photography! My God. Swag Props writes in and says, if there's one thing to be nitpicked about Raiders, it's the length of the staff of Raw. 6 kadams, 72 inches, and less 1 kadam for the Hebrew God whose ark this is 12 inches, means that it should be 60 inches, i.e. 5 feet, and yet it was taller than Indy in the movie. Was it, though? Maybe it was just taller because, he was sticking it. I don't know. I was trying to look. You might be right. I don't know. And take back 1 kadam for the Hebrew God whose ark this is. I love that line. You might be right, Swack, but I tend to go with Swack because he makes amazing prop replicas, so the details do not escape Cal. He knows what's up. Ian Brown sends in a tip and says, there seems to be newfound love for Star Trek V. Doomcock likes it, I like it, and some new YouTube videos are saying the same thing. I'm watching the films in order, just done 6, 5 had heart. Some good performances, dialogue. Your thoughts? My problem with Star Trek V, it's a deeply schizophrenic film. Clearly, Shatner was... I read his original treatment. I actually have it around here somewhere, called Act of Love. And I thought it was really, really good. But then the studio obviously mandated that he has... They did. I know this because I worked on the Star Trek V DVD, and I interviewed Shatner for this. The studio wanted humor to follow up on Star Trek IV. So there are tonal issues with the film. I mean, it's wildly tonally divergent. And I don't like that about the movie. I also think there's a lot of sloppy filmmaking in it. And a lot of that was because Bran Farron, who did the effects, they were trying to move away from ILM to save money, which went disastrously. The movie's effects are terrible, and it doesn't really have an ending. So because it wasn't filmed, they didn't finish shooting the whole ending with the Rockman. That the sort of, I always thought of them as parademons when I was reading about it. That it never got shot. So I think the movie's kind of a mess, but it does have good performances and it has a lot of heart. And I agree with you. It's not the disaster that a lot of people would make it out to be. But, you know, the rocket boots when Kirk falls off the mountain, there's just a lot of silly, not humor, but just silly and stupid stuff that it really undercuts the film. Uhura's fan dance, falling off the mountain, when they fly up the turbo shaft, and of course it's numbered in the wrong way, and then you cut, the editing is bad, you cut how they missed going from like the 50s to the 70s and back to the 50s again. I'll never know. It was frustrating. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, the intro to the sequence to Raiders is a promise of what we'll see in the movie. He encounters dangerous animals, solves problems while getting to the treasure against all odds. He gets the treasure only to lose it in the end. I absolutely agree. I think the opening of Raiders is awesome. It sets up the whole story. It sets up the character, but in a great way, showing he's amazing but not infallible when Belloc takes the idol from him. I actually have a Toys McCoy Indiana Jones doll right there with a metal idol in it. But I agree with you. I think that's absolutely true, Stubble. I think it's absolutely true. Hapkido Locke sends in a tip and says, congrats on 401. Well, Hapkido Locke, thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. Anthony Gonzalez is here, and he sends in a tip, and he says, so I've gotten my 78-year-old mother into watching my all-time favorite series, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. She's up to Season 2, Episode 10. She likes Sisko and Kira both a lot. Ooh, you know what? You got to have your mom review every episode, because I can't wait. Her mind's going to be blown. She's going to have her mind blown by the time she gets, well, to the end of Season 2, there's something mind-blowing that happens in the episode, the Jem'Hadar, but wait till she gets down to Seasons 4, 5, 6, 7. My God. You got to do My Mom Reviews Deep Space Nine, Anthony. I think that would be awesome. So I got some letters, ladies and gentlemen. I got more letters. This one comes from John Willis. Newbie physical media collector seeking help. That sounds like a personal ad. In search of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Hello, Rob. I took your advice recently and purchased the entire 41-disc set of Star Trek The Next Generation Blu-ray edition from the UK. Well, did you watch all of our special features? You're supposed to, that's where you're supposed to drop a compliment to me. No, I'm just kidding. Now I'm seeking Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, the 113-minute director's cut. But there are a bazillion versions, and I think some confusion as to whether it was ever released on Blu-ray or only on DVD as the true 113-minute version. Amazon comments lead me to believe the 2014 cake is a lie. The Blu-ray cover says 113 minutes, but people say what's inside is only a 110-minute non-director's cut version. I am so confused as to what a remastered version versus a simply recompressed DVD version as Blu-ray is or called. It's really hard to find a physical media prepper these days to give you the truth. I can handle the truth, and I know it's out there somewhere, and I want to believe. Thanks for all your shows and guidance, John W. John W., to my knowledge, Star Trek VI was only ever released as the director's cut once. Well, it was released on Laserdisc, but on DVD or Blu-ray only once, and that is the double disc version that was released in the aughts. It's the 2-disc set. I wonder if, you know what, since you asked and since I'm here, allow me. Let me get this, and I can put it on the chat. Track 6, director's cut. Okay. Let me get an image so you will know definitively. There it is. Oh, man. This is cheap. And I will, let's see. I'll put this here. I'm going to put this in the chat. And to my knowledge, it is the special collector's edition. And this, okay, as I do this, hang on. Let me import it for you now so I can get it. Hang on, I know it's taking me a little long, but since you asked this question, it's Star Trek 6. It's also my preferred version of Star Trek 6. Let me get it for you, because I can do that. Desktop. Uh-oh. It says that you guys aren't... Have I done something to screw up the stream? I hope I didn't, but we shall see. What's 231? Here it is. Okay, here it is, man. This is the Star Trek 6 DVD Collector's Edition. And accept no substitutes. This is the one that Rene Auberjonois, who plays Colonel West, we see a scene with him where he says, "We can clean their chronometers." And then we, of course, see him revealed as being one of the, well, being the person that's trying to kill the new Klingon Chancellor, Azet Boor. So this is the one you want, good sir. Accept no substitutes. Don't allow anyone else to tell you anything. But I want to thank you for that letter. That was fantastic. I very much appreciated that you asked, because that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. Let's see. Cara Bennett said, "I love becoming part of your community and entering giveaways." Well, Cara, thank you very much. It's good to have you. Bring good luck to you. Good luck on winning a $1,000 bar 9.1 from JBL and Connie in the Harbin's Experiential Engagement Division. So thank you for that. Omar94 is here. Hi, Rob. Congrats on making it to episode 400. Let's make it to another 400, starting with this episode when you read this letter. Well, here you go, Omar. Here we go. Since you were a script reader, maybe you can shed some light on questions I have. When I read up about film, I often read how many scripts go into what is called the blacklist, where some get picked up to be made into movies. How do scripts get into the blacklist? Who puts them there? Do studio people read them and then take them to the blacklist, and then they or another studio pick up the script later? Also, when I read about movie or TV productions, I sometimes read how original versions of scripts either get rewritten or completely discarded because of financial limitations. George R. R. Martin famously said he wrote his Song of Ice and Fire in prose because all the scripts he kept submitting when he worked in Hollywood were rejected because they were too expensive to pull off. For example, Mark, how do you pronounce it? I always mispronounce his name. Protosevich wrote a script for Thor, which was estimated to cost $300 million to make. James Cameron's original scriptment for Avatar, Project 880, was estimated at $400 million to pull off if it was released in 1999 like Cameron wanted. How do people figure how much a movie will cost simply by reading a script? Thanks, live long, and prosper. All good questions, Omar. First of all, let me talk about scripts. People know how much things cost. So when when you have greenlit a script to be made, or usually maybe before, you usually work with a first AD, or you work with a line producer, and you break the script down. And you figure out how many locations are there, how many visual effects are there going to be, what do we need? So based on what is in the script, you can actually work up a working budget of the film. Now, that working budget might not be 100% accurate yet, but it definitely, I hope I'm still, you can see me because I'm still getting this I'm not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. I hope the stream is still smooth. Anyway, it looks like it's still smooth. I'm getting a healthy signal. So there are people that are skilled and know how to break down scripts. They understand how much things cost. But there are formulas to all of these things, locations, and you can figure it out. And that's what they do. They all you have is a script before you made a movie, and you budget a film based on the script that you have. That's how it works. You always do that. Now, as far as the blacklist is concerned, the blacklist was actually started by, and I want to get this right, blacklist scripts origins, and one guy started it. So, let's see if it if we can find out. Here it is. Yes, it was started by Franklin Leonard, a development executive who subsequently worked at Universal and Will Smith's Overbrook Entertainment. And the website states that these are not necessarily the best screenplays, but rather the most liked. And so what happens is the blacklist are usually the best scripts that people are reading around Hollywood, whether it's agents, whether it's assistants, people. I don't know exactly how you become somebody who weighs in on this. But Franklin Leonard, who started the blacklist, knows a bunch of people around town and went to them and said, what scripts are you reading that are good? And what happens is, well, those scripts rise to the top, and that's why so many of them get made, because if you find yourself on a blacklist, 99% of all screenplays are bad. If you have 100 screenplays, one of them will be good. I know this because I was a reader, and I read hundreds of scripts that were bad. And you'd wonder, like, well, how can that be? The problem is so many people that are writing screenplays, like many people that are trying to make movies, don't know if something's good or bad. It seems like it would be a no-brainer, but they don't. And there's something when you sit down and you start to write a screenplay. Here's another problem with screenplays. So like when Lethal Weapon came out, there were writers that wrote 10,000 different permutations of buddy cop scripts, you know, and you look at them and it's like, well, Lethal Weapon sold. Shane Black sold Lethal Weapon. Now it was a big hit. Now we're gonna make other buddy cop movies. Well, again, you're following a trend, and most of the people that are following trends are not writing great scripts anyway. That's why they're following trends, because they think, I'm going to write a script that's going to sell. It's going to be just like Lethal Weapon. And they're never as good as Lethal Weapon because they're writing them from the wrong place. You know what makes a great screenplay? A great screenplay is made by a writer who comes up with a great story and great characters. And that's really that's really all you can do. So it seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised. Jacob L. is here and says, hey, Rob, been a member of the Post-Geek Singularity since summer of 2019. I love the Muppet shows and movies. I was wondering if you're a fan, and if so, what is your favorite Muppet film? Mine is the Muppets 2011. You know, I mean, I grew up with the Muppets, but I don't have I like the Muppet Show, to be honest. I thought the Muppet Show was really good. It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. I like the Muppets, but I think, you know, I don't necessarily seek out their material. And I think my favorite Muppet movie is still the Muppet movie, the first one. I think that's still my favorite. But I've seen them, and I like them. It's just I don't follow them passionately. So I haven't seen the Muppets in 2011. I got to check that out. This letter comes from Aaron Johnson. Greetings, Rob, and the Post-Geek Singularity. Congrats on the 400th episode. I thought I would discuss a topic that I'm sure a lot of connoisseurs are all familiar with or aren't familiar with. The Peanuts comic strip and its specials and theatrical films. But based on reading Wikipedia, which I'm sure the connoisseurs can also read, there are a lot of interesting facts about the pre-comic artist's life of Charles Schulz that could connect the dots to what we know about how he created Peanuts as a franchise. In my opinion, Charles Schulz lived quite an interesting life. Who knew that right before he was a cartoonist, that he served a little bit in the military during World War II, and that right after, when he came back, he worked to be a comic creator from the ground up, which to all of us is true verisimilitude on how he would develop to be a comic creator. Another important fact is when Schultz approached the United Feature Syndicate, and when this happened, they became quite interested in the strip, The Peanuts, and it premiered in newspapers across the country on October 2nd, 1950. But the TV specials wouldn't start appearing until 1965 with the Charlie Brown Christmas, and every Peanuts special after that. Then, at the end of the 1960s, there was also Peanuts theatrical films starring with A Boy Named Charlie Brown in 1969, then Snoopy Come Home in 1972, in which there are parts that are good but other parts that are sad, and then the two Peanuts films later on in 1977 and 1980, and they were so good that it literally added humor that everyone would find funny. I'm referring to Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown in 1977, and then Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back in 1980. But what's interesting, Rob, is that Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown had a TV special sequel named What We Have Learned, Charlie Brown, that originally aired on the CBS network on May 30th, 1983, Memorial Day in the United States, and 1 week prior to the 39th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. It aired on CBS only one other time, on May 26, 1984, which was the Saturday before Memorial Day and 10 days prior to the 40th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. The later specials in the late 1980s and all through the 90s were interesting. Not only is this America Charlie Brown, but other specials as well. Then, of course, 5 years ago, we had the Peanuts movie, which is I like the Peanuts movie a lot, actually, which is a testament to how animation has really evolved. I'm going to focus this portion of the letter on my favorite Peanuts special, and it's the Peanuts episode from This Is America Charlie Brown, the NASA space station. Why I picked this is because what's interesting is, as the special gets going, you see Charlie Brown and his friends on a space station, and because it's a good representation of astronauts, you can understand what's going on. The only thing that I thought they could have improved was to make it a 2-hour TV movie length, and how the crew is handled, between the reporter segments. The character interaction between Lucy and Linus could have improved better. Peppermint Patty and Marcy act like comic relief to Charlie Brown, and in the same does Snoopy and Woodstock. For the most part, the special is good for what it is, but it could be better. So that's my thoughts on the Peanuts so far, and of course the NASA Space Station special. I'll probably revisit this franchise in a different letter. So here's my question for you, Rob. What do you think about the NASA Space Station episode of This Is America, Charlie Brown? Was it a good predecessor to the Apple TV Plus show, Snoopy in Space? I haven't seen the Apple TV Plus show. I like the episode of This Is America, Charlie Brown. As far as I know, I've seen every Peanuts thing, Peanuts special. I still love. I have a Charlie Brown Christmas on Blu-ray, but I think they're great. I haven't seen Snoopy in Space, but I'll totally check that out. I'm a huge fan of Snoopy. I think Snoopy can do no wrong. Paul Gilmore is here, and Paul Gilmore says, "Hi, my channel Twin Flicks is interviewing Dean Cundy." It's actually, you have it written here as Dean Cudney. It's Dean Cundy. And we have an open to the audience question section in our interviews. What is the best way to ask the Post-Geek Singularity if they have any good questions for Dean? Thanks a bunch. Well, we can put it in the live chat, and you can look at it. So if anybody has any questions for cinematographer Dean Cundy, who shot John Carpenter movies, I believe he shot Dead Calm, The Road Warrior, one of our great cinematographers of all time. Oh my God. Wait, it wasn't Dean. Was it Dean Cundy? Hang on a second. Oh wait, you're asking, maybe there, yeah, Dean Cundy. Dean Cundy. So let's see. We go all the way back down to, wow. So yeah, no, I'm wrong. He didn't shoot The Road Warrior. Why do I think he did shoot The Road Warrior? He would work for John Carpenter to start. He shot Rock and Roll High School and Roller Boogie, Big Trouble in Little China, Project X, Roadhouse, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future, which is amazing. He shot Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, Apollo 13. There's so many things that is here. Wow, there's a lot. He shot 2 episodes of The West Wing. Amazing. Dean Cundy's one of the great DPs. I don't know why. Let me get back. Who shot The Road Warrior? Hang on. Why am I thinking Dean Cundy did? I'm making a mistake. Who am I mixing him up with? I want to find out. Dean Semler. That's right. I'm being an idiot. It's Dean Semler, not Dean Cundy. Okay. But Dean Cundy certainly has shot a lot. Alain Donois says, "Hey, Rob, was curious to know if you've seen this from Dan Murrell." What have I seen from Dan Murrell? If he says, oh, yes, Dan Murrell did a Picard review, and I've seen it. You know, here's the thing. There's a lot of people. I love Dan Murrell, and I love his honest trailers that he did about Picard. But I think, to me, there was nothing. I thought, as you all know, I am not a big fan of what they did in Picard. I just don't think it was well served. So I think Dan was a little easy on the show. I would have been much harder on the show. Uh-oh. I can now hear Dan Murrell in my ear. Wow, I like his music. It's playing for me right now. All right, Dan Murrell. I had to turn that off because I heard it. Yeah, I think what Dan Murrell's doing with his channel is very slick. The production is great, and I'm a huge fan of Dan's. He really is one of the nicest guys online. He deserves all the success, and I like his channel. I think it's fantastic. So, but his review, I thought he was a little too nice with Picard. But yeah. Martin Horowitz is here. Martin Horowitz says, "Hey, Rob, glad to see you're doing well. How about a talk on how science and science fiction overlap?" Ooh, that's a good idea, Martin. I think great science fiction always has great science in it, and that's when they work best. A movie like The Andromeda Strain feels authentic. I think it feels great. It feels so good because you whether it does or not, it feels like it has real science. It feels like it has real science, and I really enjoy that. And I like authenticity. Kubrick's 2001, because I've heard there's one mistake in 2001, and that is when Dr. Floyd is sipping his food on the way to the moon. It goes back down in the straw, and it wouldn't because of gravity. I know it's a small nitpick, but still, I always think that having good science makes for good movie making. Let's see. Royce Freeman sends in a super chat, and he says, "I heard from Kubrick's editor that Eyes Wide Shut had 30 minutes of stuff cut after Stanley died that he refused to cut prior. Dealt more with commenting on sexual abuse and child harm, mirroring Hollywood." I've never read that, and I've read a lot about but maybe that's true, because obviously there is that really creepy scene where our favorite doctor he goes to look for a costume, and he's getting the guy's Rafe, what's his name, Shabaza, how do you pronounce his last name? He was trying to pimp out his daughter, Lily Sobieski, which is really creepy. So maybe that is. I mean, I'm not sure. It could be, because obviously I think that Eyes Wide Shut is really Tom Cruise's fever dream about thinking about he can't get over his wife might have been unfaithful to him. But yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I've never heard that necessarily, but I don't necessarily think it's untrue. I could see that happening. Kenneth Taylor sends in a super chat and says, "Have you read Walter Miller's A Canticle for Leibowitz and its follow-up Saint Leibowitz and the Wild Horse Woman?" I read A Canticle for Leibowitz a long, long, long time ago. I didn't know it had a follow-up. I did not know that. That was a book that everybody read like junior high and high school. I like A Canticle for Leibowitz. I think it's great. I think it's actually really, really good. Steven Spielberg tips $1 and says, "All of my movies are perfect. Suck it, nerds." Steve, come on. Hook, Terminal. Come on, dude. You can do better than that. I don't think all your movies are perfect. I'm a huge fan of yours, though. Somehow I don't think it's really you. And if you are Steven Spielberg, you only tip me $1. Come on, Steve. You know how many movies of yours I bought over the years? Hook me up. Hook me up, son. Bob Koal is here and says, "Post-Geek Singularity Limerick Challenge, Submission 1. Sir Stewart played Picard on Trek, an actor commanding respect. Got hired by Kurtzman, and oh boy, that hurts, man. And JL now commands a train wreck." That's hilarious. Let's do that again. I can't say. Sir Stewart played Picard on Trek, an actor commanding respect. Got hired by Kurtzman and oh boy that hurts man. I don't know if I like that. Oh boy that hurts man, although it's funny. JL now commands a train wreck. I love it. Okay, Bob, I'm in. Everybody, do your worst. Send me Post-Geek Singularity limericks. I can't wait. You're all on notice. Send them all to me. I'll read them. Stubble McShave says, I heard Kurtzman say that Quibi was free for a couple of months in these difficult times. Do you think they made it free from the goodness of their heart or because basically no one subscribed to it? Stubble, I think Quibi was a bad idea. It was never going to work. They're going to, if anything, if they're going to save their asses with Quibi, they're going to start making long-form programming. Nobody cares. I haven't heard anything. There's no pop culture footprint with Quibi. Quibi was an idea that might have been interesting 10 years ago or 15 years ago. The world has since moved on. I've said Quibi was a bad idea, and we want to watch, like, this whole thing, they have this technology that you can either watch something on Quibi this way or watch it this way. That's like the dumbest, that's like adults thinking this was cool 15 years ago. I mean, it's so wrong-headed to me. It really is wrong-headed. I just don't know why they thought it was a good idea. Who wants to watch Quibi-sized programming 4 minutes to 10 minutes long? I just don't understand why anybody thought that was a good idea. They raised a bunch of money because you got Meg and you got Jeffrey Katzenberg, and they make all this. They raise all this money. I mean, you would have been better off taking that $1.5 billion that they raised and make $1,500 million franchise movies. Quibi, I just don't get. I don't understand what they thought that they were going to do with Quibi. Yeah, they're giving it away because nobody wants it. No matter how good the shows may be, people do not want to watch. I don't believe people want to watch. First of all, the thing is a gimmick. It's a gimmick to watch stuff on your phone when people watch stuff on their phone already. I would never have invested in Quibi. I would never have thought it would be anywhere. It would be anywhere interesting. I just wouldn't. I mean, they did do things like have YouTubers on, but if I was going to watch YouTubers on Quibi, I would have had the Stradman. I like watching the Stradman talk about his supercars and wrapping all of his cars in purple. That's why I would have watched that. But if I had the Stradman, I'd make hour-long shows about the Stradman. Or Davey 504, I don't know. It's just I don't know where Quibi was coming from. I never thought it was going to work. It wouldn't surprise me if we never hear about it again, and they would have just blown $1.5 billion. It's amazing to me. Like, I get it. Katzenberg has a great pedigree. I mean, hey, he worked on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He's been around for a long time. But why he thought Quibi was a good idea, I don't know. I don't know where that model came from. It was made up by adults that are trying to be cool and aren't. That's kind of what I always thought Quibi is. Chuck Philpott says, asks, have I watched the TV show All Rise? I have not, and I should because Aaron's in it. I have not watched it. I feel bad. I haven't seen it. So, yeah, was it good? I do not know. I don't know if it was good or not. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to an end of Robservations, episode number 401. I wanted to start a little slow because I am exhausted. I will be back for Elizabeth's whining about movies tonight at 8 o'clock, where we are going to discuss Terry Gilliam's Brazil, which is amazing. We're going to discuss Brazil. How cool is that? I think it's pretty cool. So, yes, I'm going to take my leave of you. I will be back tomorrow. I will not be on the John Campea show, but I will be back here. And I'm going to spend the rest of the afternoon hopefully putting up the interviews, the Robservations interviews from yesterday's epic show. So right now you've got the Carrie David interview up and you have the Brian Fuller interview up. By the way, they are all available as podcasts. And if you don't know, I'm starting to put up, because people have asked me about Robservations in podcast form. I will put it in the live chat. I have started that. They're on Anchor. They're going to be other places. So here, by the way, is the podcast. If you want to go, I've got 2 up so far. Robservations 397 is up, and the Brian Fuller interview is up. So you can go and get those podcasts if you want them, and listen to them at work or wherever you listen to. I also had to make an ad for Anchor about the Post-Geek Singularity and doing your own podcast at Anchor, which is kind of funny. So it starts the podcasts there, and you'll have to tell me what you think and give me any kind of feedback for those podcasts, which is exciting. If you want to enter, remember down in the description, there is the entry to the giveaway for the JBL Bar 9.1 soundbar, which is a very cool piece of gear. It's $1,000. It's not even available to the consumer market yet, not until May 31st, and we will be giving it away on this channel, on my birthday, on this show, on Friday, May 15th, my birthday, and I'm going to be giving back to you. Also, if you sent me something in the last 4 months, a box is winging its way to me right now, and I'm going to do a big unboxing when I get it. So if you've sent me something and I haven't shown it, well, you're going to see that because those unboxings are great. So it's fantastic. Anyway, I want to thank my moderating staff, of course, the great Mike Bodden, Detective Jim Boyers, Greg Smith, Jordy Lyons, and of course Lewis Yu. Although Jordy Lyons, I believe, is stepping away from being a moderator. I think Jordy Lyons is stepping away from being a moderator. He's got some stuff he's dealing with, and I said, "We're stronger with you than without you," quoting James T. Kirk to Matt Decker. But we'll see what we can do about that. But thank you to my moderators for all of that, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in yesterday. By the way, some people have announced, or some people want to know, I think we grossed, I think it was $1,267.52 or 60, something like that. So what I have to do is I've got to figure out how much, because the super chats, obviously YouTube takes 30% of those, and I'll figure all those out. But it looks like I can probably donate somewhere around it's like $300 to each charity, three or something like that. We'll see how that all. I'm liable for the taxes of that too, so we'll see where that all goes. But pretty amazing. I mean, I think if we could get $300 to each one of those charities, pretty dope. Very exciting. So I want to thank you for that, and I, of course, will have the submissions to each one of those places available. If anybody's wants to call me on it, I will have those available. It might take me a month because you don't get your super chat money for a month, so I might do some in tips and some in super chats, but people have asked. But I thought that was amazing. I can't believe we raised that much money. You guys are incredible, and yeah. So look for the Barbara Crampton interview, the Melinda Snodgrass interview, and the Bill Sienkiewicz interview to drop as separate videos. I did make an interview playlist on the Burnettwork website, on the YouTube page, so you can go there. Right now there are 2, the Kerry David and the Brian Fuller is up. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing an end to Robservations, episode 401. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being imagination connoisseurs. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. I will see you tonight with Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell, and we're actually going to show, she has product that she's been making. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll show you something right now. So Elizabeth she made these for a gallery show, and she was going to sell them but never did. I mean, this is like a bag, a tote bag, or what is this called? A messenger bag. Here's a messenger bag, but what's really dope about this, so this painting is one of Elizabeth's pieces of artwork. She painted this, and it's great. You can get prints of her work, but these messenger bags are dope. And if you go to her Instagram page, you can contact her on Instagram and find more examples of her work. And these messenger bags she made, they're really neat. And you can get them from her. She's also going to make more, and she does commissions and all that. But if you want one, if you're interested in an Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell messenger bag, you can get it. Find her on Instagram. I believe it's at E.G. Bell, B-E-L-L-E, or maybe just B-E-L-L. Hang on, let me check. I'll find out for you right now. Because I can do that with newfangled technology. It's E.G. Bell. So she's at E.G.B-E-L-L-E on Instagram. check out her Instagram page. She made a doll for Art Center that she's now animating. It's pretty cool. Anyway, thank you once again for being here. I will be back tomorrow. And as always, have a better day.